I want you to imagine that you're a woman. Okay, now for the avoidance of doubt, that doesn't actually make you a woman, but imagine you're a woman. Let's imagine you're a woman thinking about having a baby. Okay, how about that? What messages would you hear? Well, you'd hear quite a strong message. Having a baby, how selfish. Do you not realize there's a climate crisis? Do you not care about the planet? The last thing we need on Earth is the patter of tiny carbon footprints. What do you think you're doing? Then you'll hear other people were saying, having a baby? What about going trekking for 3 months and out to Mongolia? Do you not want to do that? If you have a baby, you're never going to be able to go and do all these exciting things. But let's say you hear those voices and you say, no, I'm going ahead. Then the Scottish government and the UK government unite in one purpose. And their purpose is to separate you from your baby as soon as possible for as long as possible. Every system, every scheme, every allowance, every funding opportunity is designed to separate you from your baby. And they say the reason is partly because they want you to do something more important, more useful than nurturing and loving your own child, but also because they say it's the best start for your baby. The best start. Being with you is not the best start. Being in the nursery down the road is the best start. Then eventually, they're probably going to go to the nursery. You're going to send your child off to the nursery, off to school, and most likely they'll be indoctrinated, corrupted, confused, and systematically turned against the values that you and your family hold. Your authority as a parent will be undermined. Disobedience will be normalized, and your child will be encouraged to be selfish to the point of being self-obsessed under the banner of children's rights. Your child will be told, we can keep secrets. You tell your teacher, we don't need to tell mum and dad, we can deal with things ourselves, can't we? We can have our little secrets. It's really difficult. Every time I practice this speech, I had to say, if your son is a boy, but that doesn't make sense. If your child is a boy, then he'll be taught at school, boys are evil, but there is redemption. You can be redeemed by becoming a bit more like the girls. If you get into pornography, that's fine. That's perfectly normal, natural, and healthy. What's the purpose of boys? Well, nothing really, I suppose, to try and be a bit less bad, I suppose. Maybe a child will be a girl. Lots of messages in society say the purpose of being a girl is to be sexually attractive. But then at school, the message to girls is, you're a member of the master sex. You can do anything. Your purpose in life, you've got to fight for team women. And don't forget, boys are evil and dangerous, but act as irresponsibly as you like around them, and that will all work out fine. Then your child might want to go to university. They might apply, but maybe they tick the wrong boxes. Maybe the diversity officer hasn't quite got space for someone in that quota group. Maybe they won't get in. Maybe they'll try and get a job instead. Same idea. Maybe you're not quite the sort of person they're looking for. Maybe you're not quite as special as the people they want to give the jobs to. If they share your values, if your children share your values, how are things going to work out for them? Look how hostile it is now. How might it be in the future? Okay, when they come to retire, who's going to pay their pension? Well, the Scottish government, the UK government, they've certainly got no plan. How's the health service going to be financed? Who knows? Who knows? That we're staring into a demographic abyss, national debt mounting. There's no plan for how things are going to work out in decades to come. So it's quite understandable, isn't it? A lot of people in this situation say, having children? No. No. And that's a shame. But human nature's strong, isn't it? And reproducing and family life is at the heart of it. But those things I've mentioned there, those impediments to bringing up a family, those deterrents to bringing new life into the world, we've got policies that address every single one of them. Positive proposals to make family life easier, better, safer, and more productive and more valuable for children. Now, the main part is they've got no answers to these points. They're busy on the more important issues. Really? The more important issues? More important than family? More important than children? More important than the future of our society? Really? I mean, they really do think they can create a healthy society while it's rotting from the core. Family life shouldn't be a fringe political issue. It's got to be central to any viable vision of the future. And that's why it's central to our vision. Now, I say we've got the answers to these. We've got policies to address these issues. Quite often, they're not really our policies. We didn't invent them. We didn't create these things out of nothing. Until about 10 minutes ago, most of our policies were just common sense, wisdom, truth, universal human goodness, pretty straightforward. So we're not reinventing the wheel, often in the Scottish Family Party. It's more like we're trying to put the wheels back on the wagon. Now, do you remember that pandemic a few years ago? Remember when it finished? It seemed like every leader in the English-speaking world had got the same little catchphrase to say. You remember it? And we're going to build back better. So the pandemic's been really tough, but we're going to take the opportunity to create a better society out of it. You just wait and see, they said. We're going to build back better. Let's take a quick vote. Who thinks that the UK or Scottish government has managed to build back better after the pandemic? They've now created a better nation than we had before. No, you put your hand up now. No, now. Yeah, precisely. Zero impact at all. Our policies, our positive policies, that make a huge difference to people, individuals in the short term. As they live their lives, it would enable them to flourish, enhance their well-being, and that's really important in itself. But in the longer term, I think we need them to save the nation. As we've already been hearing from people, is Scotland going to remain a wealthy, comfortable, developed nation? That's an open question. For decades, people have taken it for granted. You get sick, you go to the NHS and look after you. You get electricity supplied to your house at a reasonable cost, you can afford to pay for it. You get clean water. They come and collect your bins. There's law and order. There's work available if you want it. And politics is just about, what's the government going to do with its spare money that's left over after all those things. But the cracks are showing. All those things I've mentioned there, are they really as secure as they used to be? And look at lawlessness. Look at what was going on bonfire night in Edinburgh. Someone I know is a policeman in Edinburgh. He was literally set on fire in the street. Literally set on fire. And you hear the politicians talking about it. Some of them are saying, it just shows we need more youth clubs. Really? It's not that we need fathers, it's not that we need moral values, it's not that we need structure and discipline in society. We need to spend more money on youth clubs. Social decay is all around us. And the mainstream parties will say, no answer. Compassion's not enough to solve this. Now, the SNP, they're great, we can help people in need. But the question is increasingly going to become, what with? What are you going to help them with? There's no money left. Scotland's staring into a £2 billion black hole in its annual budget. The idea that the government's going to keep stepping in, and we can look after everyone. It's all going to be fine. Well, in the long term, it's not. Last year, I started my speech with the theme, playtime is over. It was a message to the Scottish government. Did the message get through? No. They're still going on in the same way. Ignore these issues and just give away money like confetti. That's their idea of politics. There's a problem. Oh, yes, we've spent 20 million on it. There's another problem. Oh, we've spent 50 million on it. That's all they seem to have, is the idea you can spend more and more money. Money doesn't solve every problem. And if the money's not there in any case, we've got to have alternatives. I mean, just to look at one of our policies, a vital policy for us. Marriage. Promoting marriage. Marriage doesn't always work out. People are people. Okay, marriage is not always going to work. But the evidence is overwhelming. Where marriage is more common, where there's a culture of marriage, it works out best for everything. For adults, for children, for wider society. Everything you can measure works out better where there's a stronger culture of marriage. Poverty, dysfunction, everything. Why does it work? Various ways of thinking about it. One way is marriage brings three things together as a package. It brings lifelong public commitment with sex, sexual relationship, and domesticity, living together. And it puts those three things together and says, right, this is a package. You get married, this is the package you're opting into. And it works. It makes a massive difference to relationship stability. So when we heard all these politicians saying they were going to build back better, if you're going to build something, you need to know what you're building it out of, don't you? What were the bricks? What were the building blocks they were going to build out of? I don't think anyone got around to telling them that. But we know what the building blocks are of a healthy society and that's families. We get it, they don't. I would guess, when you're sitting there looking up at me, I imagine a lot of you are thinking, he's quite a muscular, athletic sort of fella. I was hoping for more agreement than mirth at that point. He's probably quite sporty, I would imagine. And if you were thinking that, you would be absolutely right. Sometimes I play a game and I win, and I take my shirt off and swirl it around my head, run around the pitch screaming and shouting, celebrating. It's a great feeling. Then I'll be playing the next game, and I'll be thinking it's going really well. And then my opponent moves the queen from the other side of the board, and bang! Checkmate, and it's all over. And I slump back in my armchair, drop my phone on the floor, and think, oh, what an idiot, how did I allow that to happen? But then what I do is I pick my phone up on chess.com, and I press Analyze Game. And it gives a big printout, and it tells me how I did in that game. It might say, move 7, you moved your bishop. It wasn't a bad move, but there was a better move. Then it might say, move 20, you did this. That was a total blunder. That's where you lost it. And I can see what I did wrong. And so I'll then go on to a new game. I'll try and learn my lessons. But the last game, the best man won. This time, okay, try harder next time. How I wish elections were like chess games. How I wish. How I wish you could do your post-match analysis and say, right, the reason Labour won, well, they just did things better in the election campaign. But really, did the Labour Party win in Rutherglen and Hamilton West because Michael Shanks was a better candidate than Niall Fraser? Is that why they won? No. Did they win because they ran a better campaign than us? No. Did they win because they got better policies than us? No. I mean, politically, I don't know if they've got any policies. But no, they didn't win because they did anything better. Why did they win? Well, let's imagine we've got 100 Labour voters from Rutherglen and Hamilton West. And let's say we said to them, tell us one policy that's different between the Lib Dems and Labour. How many of those 100 people will be able to tell us a single policy? My guess would be somewhere in the region of 0. If we said to those 100 Labour voters, why did you prefer the Labour candidate to the Lib Dem candidate? I'd imagine all of them would say, I don't know anything about either of them, I've never met them, I've got nothing to say at all. And yet Labour have won. How does this happen? How does it happen? Now, looking at the results there, the Conservatives got 4%. They normally would have expected to get about 4 times as many votes. So, considering that, the tactical voting was so extreme, we got our 1%. What would you have got in normal situations? 2 or 3? I don't know. Who knows? But we've got to face the fact. This is what it's going to be like in every first-past-the-post constituency election from now on. Because talking to people on the doors, it's obvious what happened. People have got to the point where they've realized the SNP Green government, they're so bad, we've just got to have someone else instead. Who else does that, who else? Well, who cares? Whoever was in second place last time, we'll vote for them, then at least we'll get rid of the SNP. Wow. What a decision-making process for a nation that is. No wonder we're in the mess we are when that's the decision-making process. But the great hope for the Scottish Family Party is the list system. For the Scottish elections, if you can get 5, 6, 7% of people voting for you, you're in a good chance of getting an MSP elected into the Scottish Parliament. Now, we've got to have faith that these 5, 6, 7, 8% of people, they're out there. They already agree with us. They might not have been persuaded to vote for us. They might not have even heard of us. But they're out there, and we want them to support us because we're saying what they think. And also, we want to communicate to people who maybe are not quite on our wavelength, but when we hear what we've got to say, they might become on our wavelength. They think, you know what? That makes sense. That's the party for us. So we've got to find these people. We've got to persuade people. So that's a challenge. We've got a few more challenges as well. That's another one from the by-election campaign. We had a chap come along who was holding a placard, a young man, so I got chatting to him. It turned out he was awaiting a court appearance. I said, all right, okay, yeah, what's that for? He said, stirring up racial hatred. I said, all right, okay. He said, you can read about it in the papers. They call me a neo-Nazi. He said, well, I thought, all right, okay, well, if the Daily Record, and they probably call Niall Fraser a neo-Nazi, I mean, who knows? So I looked up on the article in the Daily Record, and this young man had been addressing groups of pupils outside of school, expounding the virtues of Nazism. So for once, it looked like the Daily Record was actually correct. Now, why am I telling this story? Because I'm just going through a few challenges that the Scottish Family Party faces. Sometimes we attract people with quite fringe and extreme views. It's the family party, so we've always got a challenge of making sure that we're not getting tarred with that brush. To make sure that people know the Scottish Family Party for what we stand for, not what some people who come along might stand for. That's always important. Now, another challenge that we've got. Facebook. Who's on Facebook? Put your hand up here on Facebook. Quite a few. Right. We put a lot of effort into Facebook, spent a lot of money on it. We've got 13,000 followers. But if you go on Facebook today, you're more likely to see a picture of Neil's lunch than you are to see a post from the Scottish Family Party. They've changed their algorithm and they've just wiped us out. We used to reach tens of thousands of people. We now reach a small number of hundreds. A real challenge. We've got challenges aplenty. How about another challenge we've got? GB News. Put your hand up if you watch GB News. That'd be interesting to see. Right, quite a few of you. Now, when GB News started, I think a lot of us thought, oh, that's good. A bit of variety in the media. But now it's not so good, because GB News, basically the Reform Party is like the political wing of GB News. So GB News is transmitting the Reform Party into people's homes in Scotland, and that's a challenge for us. Because we overlap in policies a little bit. Sometimes people say to me, oh, the Reform Party, they're like the family party, are they? I'll say, well, yes, apart from all our core policies. I mean, they're not pro-marriage, they're not pro-life, etc., etc., etc. They're not a socially conservative party. So we've got a challenge. We're trying to communicate with people, and then this party is being beamed in from London into people's homes on their TV sets. What other challenges have we got? Another challenge we always have at the family party. There's always another issue at the top of the agenda. I remember when we started, it was just after Brexit. Oh, it was a nightmare. Everyone, well, so many people, I'm a Brexiteer, I'm a Remainer. That was their identity. That was the issue at the top of the agenda. Not interested in anything else. Brexit's all that matters. You're thinking, oh, I'll be glad when this is over. Then maybe people will listen to ours. And then as soon as that faded away, what happens? Pandemic comes along. Suddenly that's at the top of people's agenda. That's what really matters. I'm thinking, oh, I'll be glad when this is over. We can get our people to think about our issues again. But then the lesson I've learned, there's always something else at the top of the agenda. There is always something else. Now, the other thing I've learned is that those things pass, and our issues are always on the agenda. So in a sense, we can't wait for other people to put our issues at the top of the agenda. We've got to put them there. We have got to put them there. The philosophy of the Scottish Family Party is to unite social conservatives. Everyone who agrees with us, we want them to vote for us. We don't want to divide our votes. We don't want, we're not a policy just for unionists or nationalists or whatever. We want to unite everyone who agrees with us in order to get our views, these vital principles, into the Scottish Parliament. And the pluses is our issues are coming up the agenda. Look at the media, they're getting talked about more and more and more. And that's great. And another plus for us, in a sense, is the further you go in the wrong direction, the more likely you are to notice on you. And that's what's happening with our nation. The further it goes in the wrong direction, the more likely people are to say, hang on a minute, we're off track here. We're off track. And that helps us. So all those communication challenges I've said about, there's one form of communication that is absolutely reliable and no one interferes with it, and that is you talking to people. You can speak to people, give them a leaflet, tell them about the party, and that is absolutely invaluable. Now, we've got so many policies, I can't cover all of them, but I just thought I'd say a little bit about education in my speech today. I'm going to tell you 3 little snippets from my time teaching. Now, in Scotland, there are lots of people who realize that education is not as it should be. But there are not many people who can even see why it's gone wrong, let alone suggest how to put it right. So I've got 3 little stories to illustrate it. Now, I was a maths teacher for many years in a boys' boarding school. And in my classroom, I had a pinboard. And this pinboard was called the Wall of Shame. And the Wall of Shame had mathematical mistakes on it. And half of them would be mine. I'd be doing some work on the board, I'd make a mistake, and the boys would say, "Oh, you made a mistake." I go, "Oh yeah," sorry. And they'd say, "Wall of Shame, Wall of Shame." So they'd come and take a photograph of it with their phone and print it out, and they would go on the Wall of Shame with my name on it. And we'd find other things as well, like if there was a mistake in a newspaper or a buy special offer if you buy 6, and it would be cheaper to buy the 6 separately. Things like that, we'd put that sort of thing on. And if a boy had a mad moment and really made a clanging mistake, I'd maybe, we'd have a laugh at the time. I'd maybe say to him after, "Do you mind if it goes on the Wall of Shame?" And every time the boy would say, "Oh, please, yeah, please, can it go on?" Yeah, because it was fun, it was fun. Other boys would come into my classroom just to have a look what was on the Wall of Shame, because it was, it was a bit of fun. Then the inspectors came. Do I need to finish the story off, or can I just leave it? In fact, the inspectors didn't even need to come. The school said to me, "The inspectors are coming, you're going to have to take that down." I said, "Why is that?" Well, obviously, it'll damage their self-esteem. Children are so delicate and fragile. The idea that you're going to have a laugh together about making mistakes, we couldn't possibly allow that. Now, I would say, whose approach is going to produce rounded, resilient children? We make a mistake, we have a laugh about it, it's all good fun. No, you can't have that. Because that was, we've got to protect children from this sort of fun. So that was the Wall of Shame. Had another pinboard. It was called the Hall of Fame. And this was, I put things on, like one time a boy turned up with shoes that were so shiny, it was unbelievable. So I said, right, I'm taking a photograph of those. I put a photograph on the Hall of Fame, shiniest shoes ever. If a boy solved a difficult puzzle or a team won a silly activity, you could give boys a punishment essay to write sometimes. A boy wrote one that was really funny. So I put that in the Hall of Fame. It wasn't for coming top in the exam. It was just for, fun things. And the inspectors came. Now, you can never guess with this one, would you? Again, the inspectors didn't need to come. The school said to me, they said, "The inspectors won't like it." I said, "What? This is just like it's fun, it's celebrating achievement." No, they won't like it, because they might think some people are left out if they're not on it. So you've got to take it down. So I took it down. Again, that just encapsulates the attitude in dominating in Scottish education. It's not we want to see people do as well as they can, and that's great. It's, we don't want anyone left out. If one person does well, someone else might feel bad. Now, Kate Forbes did an interview, I think it was with the Herald newspaper a while ago. She was talking about education and closing the attainment gap. And Kate Forbes said, look, the way the government's trying to close the attainment gap, they're trying to make everything so easy that everyone gets the same grade, and then they'll say they've closed the attainment gap. And Kate Forbes was saying, well, this is not the way to do it. And the media reports hailed her as a genius for saying this. I mean, goodness knows what they'd do if she read the rest of Scottish Family Party policy out to them. Right, last story, little snippet. So I was working in a boys' boarding house, 10 to 13-year-olds. And I don't know if you know, boys can be naughty sometimes. So we had this bench in the corridor outside the kitchen. And if a boy was doing something like playing cricket in the dormitory or messing around after lights or whatever, you'd say to them, right, the bench. So we're going to sit on the bench for 15 minutes, 20 minutes or something. And the bench was next to the kitchen, which was quite handy, because if there was a washing up that needs doing, if a boy's on the bench, you could say, all right, come and do the washing up. So that was the bench. Pretty low-key sort of thing. And they'd stay there for a while. Sometimes you send someone there, then you forget. But they'd come around and say, oh, sir, can I go now? Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, off you go, that's fine. That was the bench. Then the inspectors came. This time, the inspectors did really come. They did really come. They went berserk about the bench. Absolutely berserk. You'd think we had a medieval torture chamber in a dungeon underneath the boarding house. They went bonkers about it. And they said, you can't have a bench. That's humiliating. It's inhuman, degrading treatment. They said, what you're going to have is a chill-out room where the boys can go and sit on a sofa, read a book, maximum 10 minutes, And at the end of it, you have to go and you have to talk it through with them about what they've done wrong. So you'd have to go and sit with the boy and say, so why do you think we don't play cricket with a hard ball in the dormitory? And oh man, it drove me nuts. I thought, I've had enough of this teaching. I can't handle this. That was then. That was just a few years ago. There's a bill mooted in the Scottish Parliament now that would stop even that. The idea that you, seclusion, that you send a pupil to a room on their own, they're saying you can't do that. Children's rights. It's damaging to them. You can't do it. Where is it going to end? Where is it going to end? Teachers have just been shorn of every means they have of maintaining discipline. And schools are, in many cases, just a mess. I mean, I ask teachers to hear about the discipline problems in schools, the violence in schools. We've thought about mobile phone issues as well. Some of our teachers will say about the value system of their pupils, in many cases, is very concerning. The work ethic as well isn't always what it might be with a large section of the pupils. Meanwhile, what are the schools concentrating on? They're concentrating on sowing division in terms of race, with critical race theory. They're interested in stimulating the battle of sexes mentality among the pupils. But it's interesting, lots of schools are trying to counter Andrew Tate. You heard of Andrew Tate? He's this sort of obnoxious, mouthy, online figure. Lots of young men follow him. Unfortunately, the schools are saying, how come they're attracted to Andrew Tate? Why don't they love our message that boys are really bad and should be more like girls? I mean, come on. The sex education, we've heard a bit about that. It's carrying on as ever, as bad as ever. There's been a bit of debate about it recently in Scotland, but the debate just misses the mark. In England, the debate is, we want to see the resources. Schools should have to show us. And the other night on debate night on the BBC, that's what they were talking about. We should be able to see the resources. I'm thinking, you can see them. We've been showing them to people for years. We've written a book about it. You can go to the website and see what's happening. But it just seems, for one reason or another, in the mainstream media and the political establishment, they will not discuss it. But we've made a lot of progress. Why is sex education a live issue in Scotland? To a large extent because of the work of the Scottish Family Party. And we will keep pushing that. It's fascinating what's happened in the Western Isles. Again, prompted by information from the Scottish Family Party. Parents said, we don't want this. We don't want our children teaching this. So they told the councillors. And a lot of the councillors said, oh, quite right. So the council agreed on the Western Isles, we're not going to have this taught. We want this teaching instead. Victory? No. So the education department in the schools said to the council, the elected council, they said, basically, thanks for your input, but we're going to ignore you and carry on doing what we want to do instead. And that's the state of play there. It really is staggering. I mean, the transgender message in schools, I've sat with parents this year, and heartbreaking stories. Families torn apart, children's lives absolutely ruined by transgender ideology in schools. And we've got to stop it. I mean, education should be a great leveler, shouldn't it? No matter what your background, no matter what your story, you turn up at school, and the schools there encourage you to strive for excellence, forming good character. That should be available to everyone. Instead, the Scottish government's focused on what? Social engineering and political indoctrination. Every student that leaves school should be able to turn up on time, work hard, have achieved things in the past, be ready to achieve things in the future, hold their head high, be honest, present themselves well, take responsibility, bit of ambition, maybe that includes family life too. That sort of education is a gift for all, and at the moment, it's not happening in many cases in Scotland. Now, the pro-life issue, I always think, I'm going to mention something about pro-life in my speech. It's an important policy area for us. But I think, what is to say? It's so straightforward. It's so simple. You just got to reiterate the basic truth. I mean, not too long ago, we were hearing horror stories of what had happened in Israel when the Hamas terrorists invaded. And one of the stories that came out was that women had been killed, pregnant women had been killed, cut open, and the unborn children stabbed, murdered too. And quite right, there was outrage at that sort of appalling barbarism. Yeah, so that's the situation there. Whereas our own government through its agency of the National Health Service, 16,000 unborn children killed a year. Now, I think with the Scottish Family Party, we're controversial. And I think at the moment, what makes us most controversial is being pro-life. I think I'm the controversial Richard Lucas more because I'm pro-life than because I'm against same-sex marriage, say. That wasn't the case a few years ago. The pro-life issue is becoming a hotter and hotter topic. Now, on one of the doorsteps in the by-election campaign, I spoke to a man. He said, I'm a Lib Dem member, but I'm going to vote Labour. Because he said, all that matters is getting the SNP out. And I'd maybe heard too much of that during the day, and I was a bit fed up of hearing it, so I thought, right, I'm going to push back a bit. I said, is that really all that matters? I said, what about 16,000 unborn children killed in Scotland every year? And he said, that's just a medical issue. I thought, what? Just a medical issue? Now, that's not a very intelligent answer, really. I think he seemed quite an intelligent man. But it just brought home to me that for most people in Scotland, they've just never given this issue any consideration. It's not on their agenda. It's not that they've rejected a pro-life position. They've never considered it. They've never taken the time to think it through. Also with this issue, a lot of people are too angry to talk about it. And I think in some cases, the anger stems from guilt from their own experiences. And we need to be sympathetic for that, but we need to be undeterred as well. Now, people often say, as a small party, as a new party, you need some really simple messages that can cut through to people. Well, we've got one here, haven't we? Human life matters. Can't get much more simple than that. Now, a couple of weeks ago on this very stage, Alba Party had a conference here, and Alex Salmond stood here, and he welcomed Ash Regan, who had resigned from the SNP and joined the Alba Party. Resigned as a matter of principle. What were the principles she resigned on? Their independence policy wasn't aggressive enough. And she didn't quite like the way they were trying to reform the Gender Recognition Act. They were things to resign over. I wish we were in a culture where people thought, a party with a policy of industrial scale killing of the unborn, that's an issue to resign from the party over. I wish we were there, but we're not. So if other people don't put it at the top of their priorities, we're still going to put it at the top of our priorities. Now, I'm just going to finish with a quotation from an American president. Joe Biden. No, I'm educated. No, it's not from Joe Biden. It's not from Donald Trump either. Not even from Barack Obama. Mind you, if you look at Barack Obama, look at things he said about the children needing fathers when he was president. Absolutely brilliant. I think no one had told him you're not allowed to say that. That's not politically correct. But he was forever saying children need fathers. It's really important. But anyway, right, it was which president is it? I'm going to quote from. It's Theodore Roosevelt. And this is what he had to say. It is not the critic who counts. Not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Well, let's face it, in the Scottish Family Party, we've probably got plenty of defeats ahead. We've got plenty more defeats ahead. But I believe those defeats are on the path to winning. But what does winning mean for the Family Party? What does winning mean for me? Now, for me, getting elected as an MSP, is that victory? Getting that status? Getting that great salary? Or that airtime on the media? Is that winning? No, that's not winning. We've won when children are safe in the womb. We've won when a culture of marriage and commitment has been re-established in Scotland. We've won when we've got an education system, again, that aims for excellence and character development. We've won when we're in a nation where everyone's working together for the common good. We've won when we're in a nation where our basic freedoms are restored and protected. We've won when this nation's on the road to flourishing, shared prosperity, unity, and willing service. But we've got more perseverance and determination than anyone imagines. But it's really important to say as well, I think things can change faster than anyone imagines as well. And we stand ready as the Scottish Family Party to grasp every opportunity that comes our way. There are no cold and timid souls in this room. You wouldn't be here if you were one of those. There are no cold and timid souls in this room. We've certainly had our successes as the family party. We've had our failures. But as Theodore Roosevelt was saying, we are definitely in the arena of Scottish politics. And we're standing tall, knowing what we stand for, knowing why we stand for it, and standing together as one under the banner of the Scottish Family Party. Thank you very much.
Stand under the banner.